Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jorge Cura and I'm a developer for Breazehome. And in the following video, I will go over the sequence of steps and process for the creation of the new property table, how a data model is obtained from the MLS metadata, the migration process of Django to Postgres, and the creation of a serializer, a view, and a router for this new property listing API. First, we're going to go over the Mls Metadata Structure and the way they organize their resources. We can go over this tree and then we can see how they have resources, different type of resources. In this case, the one that we're interested in is the resource property. Then one of the properties that they have is a class, and then within that class, they have listings, and within that listing, they have tables, and then these tables are the properties that we want to obtain. These are going to be the fields that they're contained in within each of the listings. For example, the first one, join, is going to be account legal expenses. And from here, we can obtain the maximum length of each of the field. We can have the data type, the minimum, the maximum. If we go over another one, let's say AC percentage, we can see the same pattern, data type, in this case an integer. If it's searchable, you can see the maximum, the minimum, the common structure. Now we're gonna go over this script, which is the one that allows you to convert the MLS metadata into the Django data model. First, we're gonna have some variables that are needed in order to establish a connection with MLS using the REDS framework. As we scroll down, we can see the different data types that we can obtain from the metadata. They use some specific values, so they're set here, like for example, for integer 7, data time 3.9. These values, they don't change, so they're constant. Also, we also have some string values in order to create the Django model that are gonna be printed when creating the Django model. We have this function, which is the one in charge of getting the initial arguments when starting the script. As we scroll down, we can go over the main. And then from here, we're gonna parse the arguments, and then we're gonna get the resource, which in this case is gonna be properties that we wanna obtain from this section. Using this function call from the librets library, we're gonna generate a section, and then from that section we're gonna get the metadata, and after that we're gonna obtain the resource that we want. So we do a function call from the metadata to get resource, and this is gonna return us a resource ID for the listing or any other resource that we're interested in. Then we're gonna call this function the write tables, which is the one that is gonna write all the values for each of the individual tables in a Django data model structure. Once we go to this function, we're gonna pass the metadata and then the resource. We're gonna open a file, which is the file that we're gonna be writing to. We're gonna get in this case, the resource ID and in this variable resource name. And then we're gonna iterate this XML structure. So we're gonna go from classes to tables. And then the class that we want is all the property fields. So in this case, it will be listings. So we're gonna go metadata, get our classes from all the classes, and then the tables. And then in each of the tables, we're gonna take all the tables. And then depending on the format that we decided at the beginning, we're gonna have a model for Django and also for another one for Pirates Feed. The one that we're gonna go over in the video is gonna be Django. Which is the one that is more complicated. Once we do this, we're gonna write to the file, and then write to file, which is this function over here, Django. We are gonna get the data type from the table get data type, and then of each of the values in the table that we previously mentioned in the XML tree. So for this, what it does is, depending on the data type, we're gonna create this already defined structure. We're gonna have booleans, we're gonna have characters, we're gonna have data time, we're gonna have decimals, which in this case, for example, they have a maximum number of digits, the decimal places, and of course the null set to true, which is about in all of them. We're also gonna have long, and that's mostly it. By running the script, we're gonna obtain a file with this value, like for example, all the different tables within that class, which in this case is the listing, which is in the property resources. So accounting legal expenses equals to model that integer field. set to null. And depending on the different, like for example, for a chart field, we're going to have a maximum length. Remember that this value, all these values are obtained directly from each of the tables in the MLS metadata. In this example that we're doing, the property listing, the tables are pretty big. They're about 800 fields in total, as you can see as I scroll over. Once we have this, we're gonna move into Django to create a data model. Once we are in Django, we're gonna traverse into the real estate application, and then we're gonna go model. Within the models, if we scroll over, this is already done, but just to show where exactly are we. So in this case, we're calling this table property dump, which is gonna be all the fields in each of the property resources. This is exactly the same as the one that we obtained from running the script. Once we got that result, we're gonna paste this. We of course are gonna use we're gonna create the model. So class, the name of the model, and then models. We just paste the different fields that we're gonna need. Once we do this, we're gonna go over the terminal and we're gonna activate the virtual environment, the Python event, and then we're gonna create a migration. So by doing Python manage make migrations, this will set up Django in order to do our migration. We're gonna migrate into Postgres. We do this by just typing migration. Because I have already migrated this into our database, I'm not gonna go over any of the change. I'm just not gonna run it. It's only a demonstration of the code. Right after doing the migration, we can confirm using pgadmin. We can go over our tables and then we can find our newly created property dump. If we go over, we have 526 columns in total. It's already set and perfectly working. So now we're gonna move into creating a view, a serializer, and a router for this new API from the data model. So now that we have our data model set up, we need to create a serializer, a view, and a router for this new entry in our API. First, we're gonna go over to serializers within the real estate app. Once you open the serializer file, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna import our model from the real estate models, which in this case is property dump. As we scroll down, we can see our property dump serializer. So this is the basic structure that you need to follow in order to create a new serializer. So we first start with a class. We call it property dump, and then followed by serializer. And then we set serializer.model serializers. This is gonna have a class meta, and then we're gonna set the model equal to the model name, which in this case is property dump, and then the fields that we're gonna be serializing, which in our case are gonna be all of them. Once we're done, we're going to move into our view. Once we are in the view file, we're gonna import the serializer that we just created, property dump serializer, and we're also gonna import the model, which is the property dump. We have it right here. As we scroll down, we see our property dump view set, which this is a standard format to follow. So we create a class, we name it the name of the model, and then followed by view set. We are gonna use allotput as creation mixing, which is customized mixing created by another of the developers. We're gonna also use view set model view set, and then this is what we do. We set the serializer class equal to the serializer that we just created, property dump serializer. The ordering of the field, which in this case is gonna be all of them. Pagination class, we're gonna set it equal to limit offset pagination. We can also set it to none, but what this does, because we're dealing with a lot of property listings, this will set the view up to a certain limit. So you're gonna have basically an option to scroll or to move in within pages. So kind of like a list. So first page, second page, and then you can move on and so on with X amount of values that you're gonna be retrieving. That way you don't get all of them which in this case is something that we don't want. Once we're done creating the view set or view, we're gonna move into our route. In order to get our route, we're gonna traverse back into the folders, and we're gonna go over Breeze, which is the name of our API, and then we're gonna go URLs. Once we are in the URL page, the things that we need to do is we need to import our view, property dump view set. Once we do that, from this already created router, we're gonna register an older router. So the way we do this is router.register, and then we're gonna pass like the value that this is how the URL is gonna look. So for example, it's gonna be api.com and then / and then property dump, and then from there that's how you get your get in this case. And we're gonna pass also the view set that we're gonna be using, which is property dump view set. Once the serializer, the view, and the router are created, we can go over to the API page, and then from there we can see our new entry, which is property dump. Once we scroll down, we can see all the different fields that we obtain from each of the different properties. This is a big list, so this is one of the concerns that we have. We don't want to send this big package over the internet for the front end requests. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a view out of this table with necessary fields that the front end needs. In order to create a model of our table view, we first need to go to pgadmin, and we're going to run this query, which what it will do, it will create a view from that we're going to call property view from the property dump table. And then we're going to select all the different fields that we only going to use for our front end. So once we run this, we can go over the views, and then we're going to have a new view called property view. As you can see, the amount of columns dramatically gets reduced from 64 compared to the 526 from the table that we're going to obtain this view. Right after a view is created in Postgres, we're going to move into Django. We're going to follow almost the same structure as we previously did. We're going to create a new model, and we're going to call it property views. We're going to match all the fields that we added in the view in this new model. And then one significant change that we're going to do is at the end, we're going to change the meta. So we're going to set manage equals to false. That way, no tables are created within Postgres when we do a migration. And then we're going to set the table name that this model is going to use, which in our case is property view. We're going to move to our terminal to do our migration. So there's going to be a couple of changes to this one. We're going to do Python manage make migrations. Once we do the make migrations, we're going to migrate, but with a couple of changes. We're going to do migrate, and then because we are not creating a new table in Postgres, and we're setting the manage equals to false in this particular model, we're going to fake these migrations. So we're going to do fake and then initial. What this does is it fakes an initial migration, and now that our model is created, we're going to follow the same steps as we previously did. We're going to create a serializer, a view, and we're going to add a new entry into our router. So first we go over the serializer file, and then we're going to import our new model property view, and then we're going to create a new class, and we're going to call it property view serializer. And then from the meta, we're going to, just like as we previously did, we're gonna set the model equal to property view, and then the fields that we want to serialize with, again in this case, is gonna be all of them. We move now into the view, and then we're gonna import our serializers, and then we're also gonna include the model. We're gonna scroll down, and then we're gonna create again the same view, class property view set, and then we also gonna allow output as a created mixin. The view set model view set, and then the serializer class that we created, property view serializer. The ordering of the fields is which is gonna be all, and then pagination class, limit offset pagination, similar to the one that we previously created, and then filter class. For this particular class, we created a new filter, which is something extra that we did. So I'm gonna go over it as soon as I finish this, and then all queries set. Now we're gonna create filters for this particular view. So how we do this is we import the model, which is in this example is going to be property views, and then we scroll down, and then we're going to see a new class called property filters. This will include filter that set, and then in the meta we're going to set the model equals to property view, and then the fields that we want to filter, which in this case are going to be current price, the total of bets, if it's for sale, yes or no, for lease, yes or no, and so on. Once we have our serializer, the view, and the filters, we're going to traverse back and we're going to go into Breeze and then the URLs. First, we need to import our views, which in this case will be property view set. And then as we scroll down, we're gonna see a new register entry in the routers, which in this case is properties, which is gonna be how the URL is gonna look, and then the view set that we're using. Another difference in this new route is that we're gonna have a one-to-one relationship with 3 different tables, which in our case are gonna be media, location, and tags. The way that we do this is we create a new nested simple route, which is gonna come from properties, and then from that we're gonna register media, which is a table that includes the path to all the property photos. And we're also gonna have location, which is another table that contains the geolocation of each of the properties, and then another table with the tags. All of these 3 tables are a one-to-one relationship with not the view but the property dump table. Once we are a new entry into a router, we can see our newly created model and how it links to the view in Postgres. We can also see the filters that we created, and as we scroll down, we can see how small this package can get once we transfer all this information over the internet, which will dramatically increase performance from our server side and also from the user experience. This concludes this video, and I hope this is of great help. This is my private contact information. You can use it for future development in order to answer any concerns in the development process of creating, modifying, or adding a new model into the Django REST framework. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.